Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Always a delight to have Mr. Patrick Doyle in the house. He heads up Veritas Counseling. And today, we're taking on a very interesting topic. And by the way, if you want to join us, you're welcome to call in. He'll be here for the entire show. The local number is area code 541-776-5368. Again, that's 541-776-5368, or toll free. If you're listening and watching outside the immediate Medford area, toll free, 800-373-5368. Again, 800-373-5368. Because today we're talking about peace, or the lack thereof. And I think it boils down to this, Patrick. By the way, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We get a lot of emails for help in how the dove at various times will impact a person's life. Right. You know, a program meets their need, and that's the big thing that happens around here, the miracle that happens every day.
Yep.
And it always, I think it all boils down to they didn't have peace in their life.
Yeah.
Something was robbing them of peace.
Right.
Now, does God want us to be peaceful?
Yes.
Okay. Right answer.
I think, though, that I think that we use some cheap substitutes, oftentimes. It's my contention that, peace is the result of knowing you're loved. It's not the result of you having your circumstances organized in a way that you like. And if I could organize my circumstances, my life would look very different, right? I'd get rid of all the bad ones and replace it with a bunch of good ones. Right. But you and I, no one has control of their circumstances. That idea of control is a myth. Mm-hmm. If I'm looking to get peace from how my circumstances are, or what my life is how it's going, then I'm probably going to be in trouble. And so, I don't know if you can. Is there a problem with the mic?
No. Hold on. I got to twitch your mic up here a little bit. There we go. All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So anyway, the idea that we can get peace from organizing our life in a way that we like, I think that we put a lot of effort into that. You see people doing it all the time. And there are positive ways to do it, and there are not so positive ways to do it. But everybody I've talked to throughout the years in counseling, when it really boils down to it, there's a belief structure underneath all of that activity, or that acting out, or that compulsion that says, you're not good enough, you're not worth it, you're messed up, you're defective, you're less than. God's mad at you, God's out to get you, God doesn't care. God's waiting for you to get it together. And those kind of things being in the sort of the core of your soul, how do you then have any perseverance to deal with difficulty? Then when something bad does happen, you look at it and go, well, it's true. Look how messed up I am. Look how inadequate I am. Look how bad I am. Whatever. So, if we're talking about emotional and mental peace, so many people I talk to, Perry, talk about how their minds never shut down. Mm-hmm. They can't sleep. They can't concentrate. They have intrusive thoughts. It's just always on. And when people are having that going on, it definitely robs your peace. And those thought processes and those things that you're ruminating on are never positive.
Why?
Well, because
how can Christians? Well, listen, we all suffer with it.
Yes.
And I'm not exempt from it either.
No, we all do.
You go to bed at night and your mind starts turning, and then all of a sudden it just seems to be self-perpetuating or compounding on bad things. Yeah. You kind of wonder why.
Well, so that's just it. So what is there that has the power to interrupt that?
Well, I know what I do.
What do you do?
I pray.
Good. And what does that lead you in your thought process and in your heart? Does that lead you to compound the worry by trying to figure out the outcome, or does it lead you to a place of releasing the outcome to somebody you trust?
Well, the latter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Because, but I pray what they call, I think it's known throughout history, the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinful person.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
That's the Jesus prayer. Mm-hmm. So you pray that,
right,
and it's focusing you on Him.
Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of people, Perry, that believe God doesn't love them, that are Christians.
Yeah.
They believe that that he's upset with them, that they need to do this, that, or the other so that he'll be nice or he'll bless them.
Yeah.
It's a cause and effect. It's a you know, if you do this, then I'll do that. And if we look at the Old Testament, you see a very clear if-then reality with God. If you do this, and then I'm going to do that. If you don't do this, then I'm going to do that. You see that all through the Old Testament.
Isn't that kind of like borderline offensive to God? I mean, don't get me wrong, God loves us.
Yeah, yeah.
But are we offending him by thinking that our redemption has something to do with us?
I don't think it offends him as much as it hurts him.
Okay.
Because the problem is this going to we're going to suffer for that. Because the antidote to these difficulties is the fact that he has moved into the circumstance to help us. Now, agreed, I argue with him regularly about how he's doing it and how fast he is or isn't doing it. I mean,
you never known him to be in a hurry.
Yeah, we have these disagreements because I want it the way I want it.
Yeah.
And but if I don't believe that he is for me and that he is good, who am I going to trust?
Yeah.
So it's very subtle a lot of times. I don't think it's really all that conscious. And so then what happens is that responsibility rolls back on me. And you and I both know that we're inadequate to solve all these problems.
Right.
We're inadequate to control our children. We're inadequate to love our spouse the way we need to. We're inadequate to be, in business on our own. With God's help, it's a breeze. Okay? But peace, I think, really hinges on whether or not you not that you say that you're loved, but you know that you're loved. So in the dark night of my soul, when I'm wrestling with something, where do I go to? Do I go to turning this over to somebody that I know cares about me? Or am I turning it over to somebody who's got it in for me?
Mm.
I mean, if I turn it over to somebody that cares about me, I might be able to relinquish it for 30 seconds and then pick it back up and then have to relinquish. I mean, that process happens, but so many people that I talk to, Perry, don't have that trust that God is going to really and truly do the best thing for them.
Scripture says, or Jesus said, my peace I give to thee, not as the world gives, but as I give. Now, and you're right, you're hitting the nail on the head. I am amazed of how many Christians don't believe that there's a peace in Christ.
Yeah.
Now, the world's totally in chaos right now.
It always has been.
It's just, we just know more about the chaos now because of these things,
Exactly.
But the world's in total chaos right now, and it's got everybody without peace.
Well, there's more things to be worried about.
Yeah.
I mean, when you didn't have all the influx of news and knowledge, you could insulate yourself a little better. When we lived a more agricultural life, my worry was, am I going to get the crops in on time? Is the rain going to come? Is there a sickness in the animal? It was way less. Nowadays, we got so many more things to distract us. And so what I see people doing is living sort of like, in modern parlance, you'd say like a zombie life. They're just sort of droning through life. There's not a lot of joy. There's not a lot. They try to keep it very stable. No experiencing of joy. No experiencing of sadness. But listen, this life is full of that stuff. And you look at Jesus, and you see much variance in his emotional state. He wasn't always like this. And one of the things I think is a problem is that we put the pressure on ourselves to be always okay.
All right, I'm going to take a break here. I'm just making 3 notes here, okay?
Okay.
How do we find peace in bad relationships?
Excellent.
How do we find peace when there's not enough money? And how do we find peace when our health is totally upside down?
Great.
All right, and we're talking about peace. Those are the big 3. Relationships, finances, and health really are the big 3 things that we're all dealing with. If you want to join us, you're welcome to do that. And if you want to remain anonymous, we'll certainly respect that request. 541-776-5368 or toll free 800-373-5368. Patrick Doyle's in the house. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina and I work at the Dove TV. Did you know that when you support the Dove TV, you have a profound impact not only in our community, but around the world. It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Or today, we're talking about something that I'm sure all of us at one time or another has to deal with, and that's the lack of peace in our life. And there's a lot pulling at us today, every direction. Relationships, finance, health are the big three that pull at us as to what's robbing us of our peace. Patrick Doyle's with us. We're talking about the peace of God. And if you have any questions or maybe even a comment about this, our phone number is 541-776-5368. That's the local number. If you're listening and watching outside the immediate area, feel free to give us a buzz, toll-free, 800-373-5368. We were just talking during the break. You're getting comments from all over the place, all over the world, actually.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
From watching on the Dove. And so we know that these topics are touching a lot of lives. The subject of peace is just an amazing one. I can't say that I'm not guilty of not having peace. I don't know how you completely eradicate the lack of peace.
That's one of the things I wanted to make sure I said today was that, look, it's a matter of time before you don't have any.
But it's what you do with that lack of peace. It's how you manage that, and where do you go for the source. I mean, sometimes I find myself alone before the Lord with zero answers and zero direction. And there's a raging storm on the inside, and I don't know what to do. And I come to the conclusion, it's just me, I mean, I could be totally all wet here, but there's nothing I can do about it. I have one option left. One, trust God.
Well, actually, I think that's the only option we ever have. I mean, the delusion is we have some other option. Like the God of the universe who created light, we're going to know what to do beyond Him. I mean,
well, that's a thought.
I mean, according to how I see it, I see through a glass dimly on a good day, according to Scripture. And so my hope is in His care of me, not in my ability to manage, be strong, figure out, jump through the flaming hoops appropriately, whatever. And I think those things actually create less peace than they bring peace.
All right. At the very beginning of this, you said that peace was knowing you are loved.
Yes.
Is that right? Am I saying that right?
That's right.
Why is it hard for a Christian to believe and to know that God loves them?
Because Satan's a liar.
That's his job.
And so, one of the things I see most often, here's a very tricky thing, and you see if this makes sense to you, but so just take me, for example. In my lifetime, as a kid, I had a lot of very negative experience. My father treated me in a way that was very unkind and mean and hurtful, okay? So here's the tricky thing about lies. So my dad tells me I'm a worthless piece of, and I'm never going to amount to a thing, and
those were bleeps. He didn't say anything.
I didn't. Okay. But you get the idea. And so when your father is telling you that, it's a pretty strong message. Okay, so God comes along and says, no, that's not true. And I'm like, right, So what I believe the enemy does in lying to me is that he will, so years later, I'm in a relationship, I do something inappropriate in the relationship, and then the lie comes in and says, see what a piece of junk you are, see what you did, and look what happened to you before, and see how terrible you are, and no one can love you, and look at this, and so he starts then pointing to actual events in my life that I can't deny, and saying that those are proof of my worthlessness and my unlovability. And God's like, no. God would say, son, I know all about all that. I know everything that's happened to you. I know every thought you've thought. I know every deed you've done. And as a result of what I did on your behalf, in Christ absorbing the wrath that you deserve for your sin, I've taken care of it all. There's nothing left for you to do, son.
So why do we equate in that there's something more we have to do, something more we have to prove, or there's a part of redemption that's our part.
I think that's what we're teaching a lot of times.
Really?
Yeah. I also think it's what people hear no matter what we say.
Yeah.
But I do think there's an element in the last 50 years in the church that has the way we've presented the gospel has led people to the belief that it's up to them.
Okay, because it's tough. It's tough to understand that we're dealing with Redeemer and Judge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and we have a tendency to lean more towards the judge side.
But fine, he's a judge, but what he has said is, if I already judged, I judge my son. And I poured my wrath out on him in your place. I didn't wink. God doesn't wink at sin. He doesn't like deny it. He deals with it. And he says, I've dealt with it. Don't worry. You're fine. Yeah, but what about, and because I should have and I didn't, and what do you, and I'm imperfect and I haven't stuff and I still want to, and I think wrong things and I do wrong things. You know, yeah, and just come to me and we'll work it out. But see, in our world, there's no example of that.
All right, let's fast forward and come back. What is perfect peace?
Well, I think they call that heaven.
Okay, we're not there yet. All right, let's come down a notch. What's peace on earth?
Well, so peace, I read an interesting article a while back, and this person, a very wealthy person, I don't remember the details, but he commissioned 2 artists to draw a picture or painting of peace. And so one guy draws this very beautiful scene, very serene and just so glorious in its beauty and just wonderful. And the other guy draws this violent waterfall, just Niagara Falls on steroids, just this intense waterfall, and then huge, and outside, coming out of the waterfall is this little spindly branch. And sitting on the branch is a bird at peace, not afraid. Mm-hmm. And I find that second painting much more accurate. On this side of heaven, mm-hmm. there's no escape from difficulty. If I could control the people around me, I still wouldn't be able to necessarily control me. If I could control me, I wouldn't be able to control the people around me. There's no way for me to stop difficulty. There's no way for me to stop difficulty from happening to me. Right. And we live in a fallen world. So in the midst of the difficulty, do I know that I'm cared for and loved, and no matter what befalls me, He's going to take care of it? Eternally, for sure. Okay? And practically, maybe not. I mean, you and I both, Perry, have talked to many people who are in long-term, unending, painful circumstances. Mm-hmm. And it's going to keep happening. And so peace is not something that's static. Okay, I got it, now I'm just going to hold on to it. Peace is, it really, I think it has more to do with where I put my focus. If I put my focus on trying to find the solution, I don't think there's going to be a lot of peace in that, because I don't control the solution.
All right. I've noticed people who don't have peace. There's 2 characteristics. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Low self-esteem, mm-hmm. and somewhat cynical. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Yeah. I would also add a third one. They usually are participating in some form of compulsion.
Okay. All right. So low self-esteem, they're very cynical, mm-hmm. critical, mm-hmm. and they're involved in some kind of a compulsion.
Yeah. Now, so listen, when I say compulsive, that can be a lot of things. You can have a quote unquote positive compulsion, like working out or working or cleaning the house. Okay, people aren't going to find as much fault with you if you're doing that as if you're, playing video games 18 hours a day, or using drugs, or having illicit relationships or whatever. But I think both things are spawned out of the same place, which is that I don't have any peace in my soul, and so I have to do something to distract me from that. Mm-hmm. And so, you do that long enough, And you don't really ever get any relief. You get moments, temporary, just very, but it's very surface level. So why wouldn't that lead you to being cynical? Yeah, whatever. Nothing never turns out anyway. No one cares. It's all a big, it's a big joke. No one. Of course, when you feel defeated and unloved, cynicism is necessary. It's just what happens. But it's not helpful. And then I look at like an example, say, of, I don't know, Paul or Corrie ten Boom, or, there's lots of examples of people who were in very difficult situations, but it didn't lead them to cynicism because there was something more powerful at play. And that was, even though this is difficult, I know that I'm loved and I know there's purpose in this. This isn't just some cosmic game played against me. God is doing something good in the midst of all this. And while I might not be able to feel it or see it at this moment, I know that He cares about me. And listen, I don't think you knowing that God cares about you is going to come from an intellectual place. It's spiritual. It's beyond your intellect.
All right, we're talking about peace today, or the lack thereof. Maybe you have some questions or comments. You're welcome to join us, and if you want to remain anonymous, we'll respect that. 541-776-5368 or toll-free 800-373-5368. Before we take our next break, what can a person do to kind of gauge whether or not they're fighting this?
Okay.
Because you and I get them, or you more than I, but we get them in the office, and you just know there's no peace in their life. Whatever the issue is at the moment's got control of them.
Yeah.
And you got to kind of plow through that, get them to relax a little bit.
And I think if you get to the bottom of it, what you find generally is it's the value question. Where does your value come from? Does your value come from what you do? Does your value come from how much money you have? Does your value come from how your relationships are? Does your value come from what other people think of you? Does your value come from your family? Where does it come from? If your value doesn't come from a place of spiritual knowledge that the God of the universe loves me and cares about me, then I don't believe there's anything that can stand up against. That's the only thing that holds up. And again, I'm not in control of somebody knowing that. I believe that's something God reveals to someone. He might use me or you, or He might use a show on the Dove, He might use a song. He could use whatever He wants. But I don't have any control over someone recognizing that. But what I do know, you heard the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
I changed that a little. It's true. You can lead a horse to water and you can't make them drink, but you can give them a lick off a salt tablet and encourage their thirst.
Yeah, right.
So I think as we start talking about the reality of how someone feels, it starts to encourage that thirst. And this is the other thing that I think, the more honest we become about what's really going on, the closer we get to peace. Because we start to get aware of what actually is going on. And in my mind and in my heart, when it's all just spinning in my head, I can't make heads or tails of it. I can't grab onto it and get it to stop or keep it in place. And there's the other thing I really encourage people to do when your mind is spinning, write it down. Don't edit. Your job is just to capture it, because the thing that does is once you capture that, you can put that away. And then tomorrow you can look at it and it's absolutely the same. But in your head, never like that.
Maybe somebody, life around them for the moment doesn't have a lot of pressing issues that would rob them of peace, but they're still not in peace. Is it possible that it's a result of an injustice?
Yes. Injustice is one of the main reasons.
Okay. Because that shows up, depression and anger?
Yes. Injustice, and then above that is hurt, and then what gets to the surface is anger.
Okay. All right. If you got any questions or comments, you're welcome to join us, 776-5368 or toll free 800-373-5368. We'll continue on in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at the Dove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at the Dove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
All right, we're back. Patrick Doyle's with us, and we're talking about peace and godly peace and the peace in your life. Let me ask you a question. Do you have peace at the moment? And I think we all struggle with this. You know, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I struggle with it myself.
Yeah,
you get so much going on, you kind of go, oh man, you know. And I think what you got to be careful of, Patrick, is overload.
Yeah.
You can get to a point where, you know, if it collapses, it collapses, and all of a sudden the worst becomes the antidote.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You become so cynical about this stuff, you don't care. You know?
So what you're talking though about is something, you know, we talk about a lot, is that people get to a place where they just don't care anymore. You know, it doesn't matter. It's just useless. You get to that place where
they're auguring in.
Yeah, and so once you're at that place, you're victim to a lot of things, because now whatever you had in you that would prevent you from going down negative thought roads or negative belief roads or negative behavior roads, you don't care. So the barriers are removed and people start to give up. And people give up and live in such a way, they live in hurt and injustice and in defeat. And does that sound like someone's goal?
No.
It's Satan's goal.
Yeah, Satan's goal.
Steal, kill, destroy.
I asked you earlier, you could have a lack of peace over something immediate in your life.
Yes.
But let's take the 30,000-foot view at it. Somebody that just has no peace in their life. Is it possible that it derived from an injustice somewhere back in history?
That is so common. I believe that injustice is the main, unresolved injustice, is the main cause of peace disruption.
Okay.
You know, and so when you've had an injustice, who do you look to do justice? You know, you take that into your own hands. I mean, I've told the story before about when I was a kid. I was 11, 12 years old. I went to the library and researched how to poison my dad because I wanted this to stop. Okay, let's just say I didn't, but let's say I had. Would that have been justice? No, it would have been harm on top of harm on top, right? And so, you know, where are we going to get justice?
Well, you can only get it through the cross. Yeah,
and listen, you know, to be honest with you, when somebody's hurt me, I don't like God's kind of justice because it doesn't involve me. I want my pound of flesh. You know, I want to get a lick or two in. I want some revenge. And you know, God says that vengeance is His. I mean, I don't like that, but it's true. I mean, when someone harms me, my first instinct is not to just go, oh, okay, I'll just let God handle that. Now, God will get me to that place, but...
should somebody take inventory and stop and say, wait a minute, something's going on here. I'm not a happy person. I'm a believer. I'm out of sync with what the Scripture says and the way my life is. There's a gap here.
Yeah.
I need to sit down and with the yellow pad, start writing, and take an inventory. And you know, I have mixed emotions about going back in the past. Sometimes it's good, sometimes just leave it alone. Let a sleeping dog lie. But if you're constantly a cynical, not a happy person, you got to stop and take inventory here.
So I think you make a good point there, Perry, about, you know, if something in your past is in some form of completeness or settled, you don't need to go hunting around in there.
Right.
But here's the deal. Most people I deal with, Perry, the past finds them. If something won't leave you alone, that's the thing you deal with. I don't think people need to go looking. In fact, I say to people, if I asked you right now to make a list of 3 things that are bugging you on a regular basis, it doesn't take people very long, maybe a nanosecond. So my thing is, I'm not a big fan of the witch hunt. You know, let's go looking, you know, rooting around in your soul for some big, dark, and gnarly problem. Look, I believe this. God brings things to the surface that I need to deal with. I don't know what I need to deal with. I don't think I have that kind of wisdom. I think that's something that I need help with. So, but if stuff's knocking on the door regularly, just tap, 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 won't leave you alone. When you're driving down the road, bang, there it is. And you're trying to take a shower and mind your own business, and bang, there it is. Or you're trying to go to sleep, and bang, there it is. It's finding you. That is the place to start, and that's the thing you got to start documenting.
Let's say, all right, documenting. Let's go there, because let's say, so you just hit a big nerve. I think a lot of people are going back, yeah, I know what that thing is. What do they do with it?
So the first thing you got to do is get it in the light. That means you got to capture it. You got to get it down in writing, my opinion, because otherwise in your mind, it just keeps re-looping and it gets mixed up with other stuff and you can't really get a handle on it, make any sense out of it, and it just kind of grows. Okay, but when I write it down, then I can look at it, put it away, come back a couple days, look at it, and I can start to get a handle on what's embedded in it, where it's coming from. The other thing I can do is I can now clearly communicate that to someone else, which I think is absolutely necessary, is because when I tell someone else, then things start to change. And I can't tell you how many times in my office, Perry, this has happened. Somebody comes in, they got a secret, something that's happened to them, something they've done, they haven't told anybody, it's eaten them alive, and they come in and they tell the secret and they walk out like they're the happiest person on earth because they told somebody and they didn't die.
Yeah.
And so
you became the human garbage can.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I'm glad to do it. I love to do that. But here's the deal. If you have a secret, if there are things that you are unwilling to let the light be on, you're not going to have peace. It'll eat you up, and it can be. And here's what I see a lot of times: is it's low grade. It's not high grade, like going to rattle your cage. It's just kind of always low grade, just kind of in there, and you can cover it over and you can get by it. But every once in a while, boom, it'll shoot out, and you'll be like, whoa, you know. And so those low grade disturbances, I think sometimes are the worst. Because I can hobble along, I can fake it. But when the high-grade disturbance comes, you can't get by that. It's just too much. So you have to deal with it. And so here's the deal. The thing I would say is that I would allow myself, and here's the other problem, is you have to give yourself some time and space. We don't have a lot of that. It's clock, you know, chick, we're going just full bore and this thing to that thing, and we don't have quiet. We have the TV, we have the radio, we have the relationships, we have the work, we have the whatever. And so you got to, and I can't tell you, Perry, people who don't have peace don't like quiet. If you want to test yourself,
turn everything off.
Turn everything off and be quiet and see what happens inside of you. See what comes up. And I tell you what, whatever comes up, that'll be a place to start. Okay? But you know, I can't tell you how many people throughout the years I've talked to who just do not do silence. If they go in the house, even if they're not watching it, the TV's on, or the radio's on, or there's music on, there's never quiet. So that would be one litmus test, is that can you do the quiet? And some people say, well, sure, I can do the quiet, and then they go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm talking about be quiet and conscious.
And concentrate.
Yeah, and sort of tune in to what's happening inside of your heart and mind. And so,
be still and know.
Yeah, and so, but here's the other thing that I've learned in my own life. Quiet is hard. And usually what I have to do is I have to wrestle through a bunch of things to get to some quiet. Because there's a lot of stuff in my mind, there's a lot of stuff in my heart, there's a lot of relationships that I'm involved in, there's a lot of responsibilities I have, there's a lot of stuff in my life. And I think it's a little bit unrealistic to think that I'll just get to a quiet place and everything will fall away and I'll be like, ah. I have to go through a lot of that stuff. So here's what I see people do. They try to be quiet and their mind starts and it goes all crazy and they say, well, I just can't do this. And what I would say is stick with it. Look, when you go to that place and your mind's on fire, start documenting and start documenting and start documenting as long as it takes. And then usually what there is like this, and that's the moment where you start to get a little quiet. But don't think you're going to jump over all the content and get to quiet. You got to go through the content. And that's a God that loves you saying, son, I want to help you get through this so it no longer has control of you.
Wow, that's big stuff, because so often people have a very precise, quiet time, devotional time.
Yeah, but it's always focused on learning something, hearing something. You know, we have a book we read, and you know, nothing against, you know, Bob Gass's beautiful work, but that's only one piece of it. The other piece of it is you have to put that stuff aside and just be quiet instead of engaging your mind in another distraction.
Well, you answered my question, because a lot of people have very dedicated devotional time.
Yeah.
But they leave that, they get in their car, and all the unrest and the peace, the unpeace, the lack of peace is all there again.
And then here's what happens, I think, is then they start to think there's something wrong with them.
You're right.
Because this isn't working. I do my devotions, but I must need to do something else because God's not really coming through, or I'm not really feeling that peace. Or what I see people do is they gain some knowledge that is helpful, and it's like, oh, that was really interesting, but it doesn't necessarily mean peace. Sometimes what all that knowledge does is it puts pressure on me. Oh, I learned that you need to, be loving to people, or I learned that you need to, praise God, and I'm driving down the road, and I'm not. Those things aren't things I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And so then I feel like, well, I'm a bad Christian because I didn't want to do the stuff that God's trying to tell me to do. And I think if we're honest, we all go through that. But God is not a God of pressure. He's like, look, I came to the earth. You didn't ask. It's my plan.
While you were yet sinners.
Yes, and I am going to take care of you. Guaranteed. No one can stop me. Do you believe me? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Depends on the moment you ask.
Yeah.
So I think, and so the other part of this is that we really need other believers who are safe, who are able to hold what we say to themselves, who are loving, who we can express these things. The scripture says we confess our sins one to another so that we can be judged, beat up, and kicked to the curb. No. So we can be healed. And so remember, confession is not just about my sin. It's also about confessing who and what God is as a reminder.
All right, we're talking about peace, or the lack thereof. And if you want to join us, 541-776-5368, or toll-free 800-373-5368. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at the Dove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on the Dove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we are back, and our final segment with Patrick Doyle, Veritas Counseling. We're dealing with the subject of peace. It's a huge one, and I'm sure there's times in your life you struggle. I don't have any peace, I've learned in decision making, by the way, and I often, people will ask me when they're in the middle of a big decision. I've learned this the hard way, by the way, that you get down, you pray about it, and you have basically two options.
Yeah.
One you're going to feel peace about, and you're not going to feel peace about.
Yep.
And usually the one you feel peace about doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, like start a TV station.
Yeah, well. So you go where the peace is.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is when you get up from that time of prayer, the enemy will come and say, "Are you sure?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you really sure you did the right?
Yeah.
You should have went where the facts were.
Exactly.
That's confirmation you made the right decision." So go where the peace is, and usually it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Sometimes God will move you from success to significance and those kinds of issues. But let me ask you this. It seems to me that we Christians are really tied up in the me factor.
Wow.
Even this peace thing is about me. Do you think we've lost an understanding of the sacred, of the reverence? We're talking to God Almighty, the creator of all things, the giver and sustainer of life. And it's more about me than it is his nature and character. So let's just add a little weight to this problem here.
Well, I think
let's steal some more peace here.
I think you're onto something very important, though, Perry, which is that how we view responsibility as it relates to us and God is a big deal. Because listen, if If I believe that it's up to me to do X, Y, and Z so God can get involved, what's that going to do to my peace? Because I for one don't see that as a scriptural reality. God is the intervener. He's the one with the power. He's the one with the motive. I'm a child who's like 2 years old, that wants to jump off the table onto my head. Yeah. I need his help. The whole thing is not me up here and him down here. It's the other way around. But when I get focused on me, it's because I have responsibility in the wrong place. If I feel like it's up to me to fix all this stuff, I'm going to be in overwhelm. Yeah. If I don't feel safe to go to him and say, I'm out of control, I don't know what to do, I'm hurting, I'm lost. If I don't have the freedom, the will to move into that place with him, because here's the thing, I strongly believe that dependence is where I'm supposed to be. The sin of Adam and Eve was to become
independent,
self-reliant.
Yeah.
They're going to figure out a way to do it themselves. They're going to be like God. And God was like, no, you're not. It's impossible. No one can be like me. I alone can only be God. And so if I'm in that dependent place where I'm trusting God to take care of me, all the heavy-duty weight of all those decisions gets put on him where it belongs, instead of on me. I'm this limited, finite, not very smart comparatively. But this gets back to something I think that's very delicate, and I want to be very respectful, but I also want to be honest, which is that much of the gospel presentation that has been going on in the last 50, 60 years is about you need to make the most important decision of your life. You need to accept God. You need to make you, and then God. I don't see that really happening in Scripture. We look at, say, Paul. Did Paul make a decision? No.
God got knocked off his high horse.
God like kicked the door and said, hey, how's it going? You look at Moses, you look at Peter, you look at all the disciples. Jesus went to them and said, hey, come with me. It wasn't them figuring it out. He invaded their world. He came to them and pulled them out. Okay, and so I don't think it's intentional on the part of the church over the last 50, 60 years, but I think it's been an unhealthy dynamic that's taken place, which is where people, listen, if I am going to love God based on the fact that I made this decision or it's up to me or whatever, however it's presented, wouldn't it also follow that it's up to you to keep it going? But the gospel's good news because the God of the universe intervenes. He comes to us and says, look, I know you were doomed. I took care of it already. I mean, there was a point in time, thousands of years ago, where the Son of God was physically on the earth. And he suffered and died and rose again in a point in our history. Was I there?
No.
Were you there?
No.
So I didn't request this.
Right.
He did it on his own volition before I was even aware of anything, before I was even here. So what makes me think that I have any control over how he loves me? He already intervened.
All right, so it goes back to the first thing you said. Peace is knowing you are loved.
Yes, exactly. So this is a bad analogy, but it's one of the best ones I got. So if anybody thinks of a better one, let me know. So I think everybody has experienced at some point in their life being infatuated. When you're infatuated, what do you like?
Goofy.
Goofy. You're like, so happy, and you're like annoying because you're so happy. You know. And what makes people who are infatuated so happy? What makes them so happy is someone absolutely, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, accepts them and approves of them and thinks they're awesome. Mm-hmm. A human. Mm-hmm. And it makes them like giddy. Mm-hmm. And problems disappear, right? And all the birds are singing, and every day is sunny, and everything's glorious, right? Because some human absolutely approves of me. And you know, we stay in a relationship long enough, we find out that's not true, which is why infatuation can only be temporary.
You end up in counseling.
Yeah, but think about this: if the God of the universe is saying, "I know everything,"
and I still love you.
And I am in absolute acceptance of you. I'm not upset. Anything I had to be upset about, I took care of. You're completely safe with me. You're completely welcome with me. I'm absolutely for you. Would that shift the peace?
Should.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So I get a dose of that. I'm like, oh, awesome. This is great. Thank you, God. Yes. And then I go talk to my wife or my kid, or I go to my business meeting, or I go and somebody cuts me off, or you know, my bill comes in that I don't have money for, or whatever. And then I take that back on, and I'm like, oh, what do I gotta do? And I gotta, because, and I should have, and what about, and how can, and I start doing all that internal dialogue, and I forget. And so 2 things I think are really important. One is there a time in your life where you know that God spoke to you, revealed, wrote on your heart that He loves you. And you know it. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what any of the circumstances are. You know that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, write it down and rehearse it. And then go to somebody that you know and trust, another human being, and say, you know, I'm struggling with this. I know God loves me, but I've been thinking about this, and let them be aware so that it's not in the dark. Mm-hmm. In the dark always leads to lack of peace. Mm-hmm. Okay? So the other thing is, I would highly encourage you, this is going to maybe sound a little odd, but I would highly encourage you to read the scriptures, but not to find information, not to find out your moral failing, not to be a good Christian, not to make your pastor happy, not so you can be in church service. I want you to read the scripture, because from what I can tell, the scripture is God's revelation of Himself. You want to know who He is? Here, I wrote it down for you. Mm-hmm. So the other thing I want to encourage you, and some people have heartburn with this, but I would encourage you to get a copy of the scriptures that is in a translation you understand. Mm-hmm. Get a Message or a New Living. And read it. And when you read it, what you look for is, you're looking for God's goodness. You're looking for God's glory. You're looking for God's kindness, and you're looking for God's redemption. You're looking for Him. I guarantee you something. If you see God, you'll be changed for the better. I guarantee it. He guarantees it, more importantly. So when you read the scriptures, don't look for information. Don't study it per se. There's a time and a place for study, no doubt about it. But I want you to read it, and don't read 2 verses. If we had a long-standing relationship and I sent you a letter and you've been waiting for weeks or years, and you get the letter, you run down to the mailbox, you're going to pull it out, rip it open, read 2 lines, fold it back up, and put it in your pocket?
I don't think so.
No, you got to read large chunks of it and allow Him to open Himself up to you and start to see that He is good and He's safe. And when you see that, I promise your peace level will go up.
All right. Patrick Doyle, Veritas Counseling, 622-6018.
Yes, sir.
622-6018. That's area code 541. And you'll be able to pick this up a little bit later at the Dove website. If you want to watch it again or share it with a friend at thedove.us, you can do that. We'll see you next time on Focus Today. Thanks, Patrick.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.